As I now basically have one foot in the grave according to the internet because I'm almost 30, I've found that in my old age that defining terms is something that's been very interesting. A lot of times when I have conversations with people, whether it's in real life or whether it's online, sometimes we like say specific things and I just think like, what does that really mean? Because a lot of stuff just kind of becomes buzzwords, I feel, that we just use and kind of have a vague idea of what's going on, but we don't really know what the actual term means. And for me, one of those is quality of life. What makes a quality of life thing, whether it's in a video game or for a piece of technology or what have you, what makes a quality of life versus being a full-on implemented feature? During this stream, the conversation came up because I mentioned that it would be really nice if Shadow's vehicles in Project 06 had some sort of visual indicator to let you know when the boost was ready, because for some vehicles, it's a 1-second delay before each boost, and for other vehicles, it's a 3-second delay before each boost. So you're kind of just sitting there mashing A and losing speed because A is also the accelerator button. And out of that, we had this pretty fun conversation with what I would say is a satisfying conclusion to what the definition of quality of life is, but don't take it too seriously. This is just for fun. And also, this was during the 24/7 streams, where when I did early streams during that event, I stayed in my pajamas, so I won't be wearing my usual getup. Anyway, enjoy. That is an interesting question that I think we've had a discussion before, is when does quality of life go too far? Because quality of life is usually to make annoying things in video games not nearly as annoying. But when does it get to the point where it's like you're basically just removing the identity of the game? I also feel like quality of life is a term that's like everybody kind of knows what it means, but you can't really describe where the line is between quality of life and feature, you know? An example, I guess, is a lot of Pokemon ROM hacks have it to where you can run, and running is the same speed as bike speed. So like in a hack like Crystal Clear, which is a hack of Pokemon Crystal, it has followers. So essentially the idea is that you can run around with your followers, since obviously the Pokemon doesn't follow you while you're on the bike. But it also does kind of remove the bike's use a little bit. Now in Crystal Clear, the bike also gives you free headbutt, so you don't have to have it on a Pokemon, so it still has somewhat of a use, but I don't know. Small improvement over original thing without changing it too much, right? But that's like vague is what I'm saying, because it's hard to really pin down what a quality of life is. Usually I'd say quality of life is like information, the game giving you information on something. Like we talked about how with Shadow's vehicles, it'd be nice if there was an indicator when your boost is ready to be used again. But like a thing like checkpoint timers, I think is like quality of life. But would changing the jump dash type be a quality of life or a feature? Or like Sonic's custom gem shoes, is that quality of life or a feature? I don't know. I guess it really is just whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really have to matter. See, that's an interesting one. Like Tails' flight meter, is that quality of life or is that like a feature? Because I feel like that's a weird gray area one, you know? I'd say it's a feature because it has the thing with the energy cores that you can prolong Tails' flight by defeating enemies and collecting their cores. But also, like, it's not like a significant difference. You just have an indicator of how long you fly for. Could be both. Oh, well, that's a lame answer. Because I would also say that, like, quality of life is usually relegated to things that kind of, like, speed stuff up that are generally pretty annoying. See, but that's just it, is it's a visual indicator, but it's also, like, a feature? Because it sort of changes how Tails' flight works. It's a quality of feature. I like that. For Mega Man games, just for another example, in Mega Man games, it has a rapid fire setting where you can just hold the button down and Mega Man will just constantly shoot pellets rather than having to mash it. Is that quality of life or is that feature? I don't know. Yeah, Omega's Gatling gun is like a full new move. But also, here's a question. Blaze's Fire Claw change? Because if you remember in the first version of the Silver release, Blaze's Fire Claw, once you activated it, you fully committed to it until you ran into something or homing attacked an enemy. But now in Silver Patch 1.4, Blaze's Fire Claw, you can now adjust the speed with the control stick as well as it ends after a second. I'm almost like convinced that quality of life is just sort of like a synonym for small feature. Because I think actually looking at it now, like Silver's spin jump, quality of life. You could also say, like, they don't need it, but need is also a weird word because all the characters need to be able to do in order to beat P06 is to move forward, jump, and have an attack that at least does 1 point of damage. So are all the moves just quality of life? Here's the hard part about that, though, is that quality of life, I don't think only can show up in like a remake. A new game could have quality of life, but I guess it's a new feature that could be added based on what other games do. Like a speedrun mode that integrates a like timer in-game for speedrunning like Gravity Circuit does. I think that could be quality of life. What's up, Hunters? How's it going? Currently on a rant trying to figure out what the difference between a quality of life thing is in a video game versus a feature. Would I consider quality of life in RE4? Like OG RE4? Oh, as in remake versus OG? Definitely auto-sorting the Ashad case would be quality of life, because it saves time organizing your Ashad case. But I think it could also be a feature. That's what I was saying, though, is I don't think quality of life can only exist in, like, a sequel to a video game. But I guess I did already say that, like, it could be improving on a feature of the genre, even though it's not in the series of said genre. So just an improvement on the genre entirely. Because another example of, is it quality of life or is it feature? The spin dash. Because the spin dash was a thing made to allow people to get up to speed without necessarily having to take advantage of the terrain in order to do so. But I guess it changes the game too much. Maybe quality of life is just whatever you determine it to be. But I would agree that quality of life is usually used to describe smaller features. Oh, really? I didn't know that, because I was gonna say Silver being able to grab the balls is quality of life. It's not like this means anything. I just, you know, find it interesting to try to define vague terms. Hey, I know I'm on your second monitor, but there's a relevant thing to look at on screen. Because, like, if I'm writing a script for a video, I say, like, a thing's quality of life when it's really more of a feature and I want to dig more deep into it. I've found a lot of fun recently in, like, really defining terms, because I feel like as humans, we just kind of say a lot of things because we've heard other people say them, so we have a vague idea of what it actually means. But then you sit down and be like, you know, what does this thing mean? That's why I like to do on stream sometimes. He's be like, you know what? This doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I suppose I'm satisfied with that answer. That quality of life is a small feature that makes an improvement on a genre or like video games as a whole. Because I wouldn't call like fast load times a feature. I wouldn't call autosave a feature. Autosave is definitely like quality of life. I think I'm satisfied with that. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that because like some modern games have longer load times than 06 does. Kind of circling back to the conversation a little bit about like 06 in context of its time, that like 15-second load times were inexcusable, but like every time you fast travel in Breath of the Wild, there's like a 20-second load. Yeah, for emulators and stuff, I'd say save states are quality of life, yeah. Like, actually, another thing is, like, jumping from Generation 5 to Generation 6 is that, like, saving your game in Pokemon used to take a long time, but, like, Gen 6 onward. Oh, I think Pokemon games have autosave now, but, like, Gen 6, it was, like, crazy. Because I remember my first time playing X and Y, I would, like, save multiple times because I didn't realize if I had saved or not. I could be wrong on this, that Silver's any percent speedrun, you spend more time loading than you actually spend playing the game. I don't know if that's the case for, like, a no-credits warp speedrun, but I think that's the case for any percent, though. An 06 speedrunner would have to confirm that. So I decided to take it upon myself and use the ancient art of Googling stuff on my own to find out the thing that I want to know, to look on speedrun.com for the Silver any percent world record for the original 06, of course. And I found on Nick867's run that the load remove time is almost 6 minutes, and the real time attack, which is the time with loads, is almost 10 minutes, meaning that the load times account for 4 minutes of the 10-minute run. I know 06 has long load times, but it still surprises me every time with just how much time they take up when you play the game. Anyway, that was it for this rant. I hope you enjoyed. We're back with them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.